Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this video about, shadow work by the moon cycle. This is going to be a really interesting, awesome topic. Okay, so we're going to break this down into 4 weeks since you have a 4-week cycle. Okay, so the very first week, and it's also perfect because the 4 phases of forgiveness. This would be absolutely amazing to do in a 4-week cycle every 28 days, doing one thing that you forgive, whether it be forgiving yourself, forgiving the perpetrator, or forgiving both. Sometimes we have to forgive ourselves for the positions that we put ourselves in, and we have to forgive and release those things for them too. And the more you do this, the easier it's going to become to be both forgiving and compassionate. So the very first week, the very first week is what you're going to spend. You're completely and totally going to spend the entire week understanding everything objectively about that situation. I was talking about this the other day. Do not be the actor in the play. Be the viewer in the audience and objectively observe every pattern. Okay, now once you figure out exactly what hurt you, the first phase of forgiveness is the uncovering phase. Okay, so you go through the entire situation and you look at it and you're like, okay, how did this affect me? What exactly happened? Journaling every single night religiously, well, I don't like that word, but like legit every single night for at least 10 minutes about this topic. If you want to do a separate shadow work journal or a moon cycle journal, that would be a fabulous idea. That way you spend 10 minutes on that and just that, and then you can put it away and not think about it anymore. And then you have your other journal if you prefer to journal in separate journals. You can do your other journal where you do your days, whatever you like to do in your journal. Rambling. Sorry. Okay, so when you spend about 10 minutes a day focusing specifically on this, whether and I actually, let's say 20 minutes a day, so 10 minutes in meditation, 10 minutes in journaling. Okay, so you want to objectively analyze the entire situation. You want to look at what were your actions, what were their actions, reactions, responses, try to fix, all of it, every single pattern in there. Okay, and spend about 3 of the 7 days doing that. Then in the second half, those last 4 days, take the time to start looking at how it affected you later. Okay, did it cause ruminating thoughts? What did it make you think about yourself? Is it something that affected future relationships? Is it something that made you pull away from people? Is it something that made you put up walls? Whatever it is, how did you react to that situation? What was your trauma response, basically? Okay, and then go through the next 4 days and just analyze all of it. Okay, how did it make me feel? What is it that I want? Because in the next phase, the second phase, the next 7 days, you're going to decide whether or not you want to forgive. Okay, because you may not be ready, and it's okay. If you find out in that first week that you're not ready to forgive, well, actually in that second week that you're not ready to forgive, it's okay. Because it's hard. It is so hard to forgive. But if you work on this for an entire week, I promise you, well, 2 weeks by the time you're done with the second week. But if you end up working on this for an entire week, you're not going to be able to figure out a reason why you shouldn't forgive. Okay, so the second phase is the decision phase. Okay, so you spend that whole second week pros and cons list every single day. And I want you to, again, meditate for 10 minutes and then write for 10 minutes. So meditate on a few pros every time. Start with pros. You always start with positive, you always start with the positive because then it's harder to find the negatives, right? But that's not necessarily a good thing. So do this maybe opposites. The first day, do all pros first, and then on the next day, do all your cons first, and then on the day after that, maybe do a pro and a con. See what works best for you. Because we don't want to influence ourselves in a particular way because we play mind tricks. That's just not a good idea, right? We don't want to trick ourselves, because if we start to trick ourselves, then we're lying to ourselves, right? We're manipulating ourselves. So don't necessarily follow that rule, right? But if you sit there and every single day write a pros and cons list, what is the pros of forgiving? What is the cons of forgiving? Now, I'm going to give you some things to think about in this second phase, this decision phase. How is it affecting your life still? If it is still affecting your life in any way, fear, guilt, shame, depression, anxiety, attachment's a thing, guys. We don't want to be, clinging on to somebody else and not having any self-love for ourselves. So if you have any problems with any of these things, these are things you need to look at and consider. Do I still want that in my life? Okay? And then looking at it and saying, okay, if I do end up forgiving, what are the pros of forgiving? And if you don't know what the pros and cons of forgiveness are, I did a video on forgiveness quite a while back. I'll do another video on forgiveness. I'm all about the forgiveness videos. I got some really great freaking slideshows I created when I was a therapist, okay? I can give a whole slide presentation on forgiveness. So, all right, so spending the second week in your decision, are you ready to forgive? Okay, so for the first 3 days, do your pros and cons list, and then the second 4 days, make your decision every day. Make your case, make your case, make your case. I want to forgive because, I want to forgive because, I want to forgive because. When I forgive, I will be able to. Okay, give yourselves these I will statements. I will statements, okay? I will is very powerful. The words you say, the words you write, they mean something. They matter. So do not speak poorly to yourself. You're hurting yourself. But when you speak highly to yourself, you are lifting yourself. You are lifting your mood. You are literally lifting your mood. There's actually a thing in psychology that says if you are feeling anxious and you are sitting down, get up, stand up out of the anxiety, walk away, and sit down somewhere else, and you will feel better. You literally rise up. And when you are pulling yourself up in your mood by lifting your spirits instead of downing yourself, then you start to heal. It starts to become second nature. Okay? Now, I want you also in the second 4 days to not just write the I want because and I will be able to blah, blah, blah. I also want you to consider this. What is it that I am letting go of? And how am I learning from this if I forgive? Okay? If I forgive, I will learn blank. If I forgive, I will be able to blank in the future. Okay? I will leave blah, blah, blah in the past. I will close out this cycle. Make sure you tell yourself that quite a bit. I will close out this cycle. I want to close out this cycle. I will close out this cycle. I will learn from my lesson. Whatever it is. Okay? Now, the third week, remember, we're past the halfway point, so now the shadows are no longer scary, because now you're like, okay, well, forgiveness seems like a good idea. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. Maybe I don't have to hold on to those resentments. Maybe I don't have to hold on to grudges. Remember this. Forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. I will say that 1,000,000 times until the day I die. Forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. If someone has hurt you continuously after saying sorry and they continue to hurt you, they're not sorry and they're not going to stop. They don't deserve to be in your life. Forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. It can, but it doesn't have to. So I just want to make sure that it's perfectly clear. If you are changing and you are growing and someone continues to grab your ankle and try to drag you back down, they don't deserve to be in your life. Maybe later, set your boundaries. If they try to walk all over those boundaries, walk away. You're worth more. Okay? Moving on. Little side rant. Sorry, squirrely. Anywho. Okay, so 3rd week, phase 3, the work phase. This is where we get into the nitty gritty. This is where we really start looking at the stuff we looked at, the objectivity that we observed in the first phase. We take that into our 3rd phase. We take that into the work phase and we start looking at it like, okay, I see these patterns and I understand. Now let's look at their past, let's look at my past, and let's see, maybe there's a reason we both reacted the way that we reacted. My mouth doesn't want to work. I don't know why. Anyhow, so if it comes to that point, like, this makes compassion so much easier. So I did a video about this the other day about it is so much easier to be compassionate when you understand one thing that will change everything for you. And if you didn't watch that video, here it is. Fear can never understand love. Fear is a very low vibrational frequency, which is about 50 hertz. The bandwidth of 50 hertz is about this big, give or take. Okay? Not actually. I'm just saying, if it is this big. Love is 400 hertz. The bandwidth, if you were to compare it to this, is like this. Okay? We're talking 8 times larger. The bandwidth, the amount of information that is sent when love is given is this much. If you are in fear, you can only receive this much of that love. Fear can never understand love. It doesn't think big enough. Mind blown. Absolutely mind blown. Now you can look back objectively at every single pattern and every single relationship in your life, familial, platonic, love, it doesn't matter. All of them. If you can see a pattern of love, that person is trapped in fear or you were trapped in fear, guess what? You didn't understand love. And neither did they. And now the compassion door is wide open. Oh, I'm serious. The compassion door swings wide open when you understand that singular phrase. Fear can never understand love. Compassion becomes so much easier. And I just want to state for the record, I have been through some very traumatic events, and I have found compassion for even things that are kind of absurd to be compassionate about. Kind of absurd. But I've found compassion by telling myself that person did not understand love. That person never was able to rise above fear. And I feel sorry for them for that. That person never rose above fear. Or that person never rose above anger, which is like 50 hertz. Not much better. It's like, it's just 40 hertz. It's even worse. I don't know. Somewhere around there. Okay, so now you have the work phase in 3, okay? And in the work phase, this is where you learn the compassion. This is where you learn the lesson. This is where you figure out, how do I close out a cycle? Now you learn how to transmute the energy to change your triggers from a pulling down to a pulling up, okay? We'll get to that in the 4th phase. That's where you're going to do all of the trigger work, okay? So you're looking at the entire situation and gaining a new perspective. Okay, this is why this is important, because now we're at 3/4 of the moon, right? So it's getting pretty bright out there. So you're starting to be able to see a little better. Maybe you can see some boundary lines. The ones that you set and drew in the sand. So now you're able to see a lot clearer from the fear where you started to where you are now and looking at it like, oh, well, maybe I can have compassion, which is really close to love, right? So maybe I can have compassion, not just for the other person, but for myself. And then we move into phase 4, the 4th week of the moon. And then at the end, culminating in the full moon, I highly suggest celebrating the full moon with a release party and like maybe just with yourself. I mean, if you just sit in front of the mirror and be like, I am so proud of you for releasing this and turning this into a blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what you should do every full moon. Every full moon. I think that is a fabulous idea. Okay, anywho, when we are looking at the I just had a very moment. The whole moon cycle is 28 days from new moon to new moon. Not 52 or 56. Yeah, not 56 days. Okay, so we're talking about the full moon at 14 days. So at 14 days, this is when you can finally see, like, for real, like, everything that's in front of you. This is funny. I'm like, anyway, so by the end of the full moon cycle, you can celebrate. You can celebrate. The 4th week is, the 4th phase is the deepening phase, okay? And in this phase, this is where you start to settle in to a new understanding. Your new understanding of your previous shadows, like shame and guilt. Now they're no longer shame and guilt. They are transmuted into whatever energy you feel comfortable transmuting them into, okay? So you start getting used to that. Then you also start getting used to the relief from releasing, because your whole body will feel so different. I'm telling you, I walked around, it felt like I was in a cage when I finally started releasing all of this stuff. Like, I was like, oh wow, the spine can do crazy awesome things when you're not all tense. So you start to get used to the new parts of your body. You will start to feel lighter because you literally feel like you are releasing weight. And you start to feel better about yourself because now you don't see what you did as stupid. You see it as a lesson that you had to learn and that you overcame. And you start seeing yourself differently. You no longer see yourself as the victim, the one that has the stamp on her forehead that says, take advantage of me. Because guess what? Next time that Rico Suave comes walking up to you and be like, motherfucker, I don't think so. I got self-worth. Bye-bye. Yeah, you're not going to be letting some dude like text you at like 10 p.m. just for a hit and quit. Because you're going to be like, no, not worth my time. Right? You'll have more self-worth. Because you know that it took a lot for you to be able to come through this. It took a lot for you to overcome it, okay? Now, during this 4th phase, there's also one other thing. So the first 3 days, you're going to sit there and start, talking about all of the wonderful things that are changing in your life, the way you're feeling, how you feel now that you've let things go, all of the releasing, everything, okay? The second 4 days is when you start the celebration. And I really want you to focus on understanding how to change triggers, okay? So triggers are something we cannot control. And I mean that in the respect of like, we can't control like somebody walking by us on the street and mentioning the name of our ex, right? That's a trigger. Our response to it is automatic. Okay. And it is automatic. It can either be an automatic negative thought, which is what they teach in CBT, or an automatic positive thought, which is what I encourage. This leads to an emotional, a behavioral, and a physiological response, right? Now understand you have no control from the thought, or from the trigger to the thought to the reaction. You have no control, and it's done like that. So split, okay? So if you train yourself to have an automatic positive thought when you hear that name, you are no longer, you know what, I'm gonna put the positive thought up the top. If you train yourself to have an automatic positive thought instead of a negative thought, you are raising your vibrations without even knowing it, without even trying, without even considering it. You are no longer drawn back into that traumatic moment because you have cleared it. Now you are drawn to the fact of whatever it is that you decided to find as a silver lining, because that's a part of training ourselves through these triggers, okay? Finding the silver lining. I know that is right now, before you do your first moon cycle, I promise you that feels really icky. As a matter of fact, the first few times I said it, I was like, bleh, 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 bleh. Okay? Because it's really hard. When you have been through ridiculous trauma, it's hard to find the silver lining. But when you find the silver lining in your recovery, it's not hard. It's not. So I will give an example. My second husband had a tragic death. And every time I heard his name, I was revisiting that tragic death. And it wasn't until I let go of all of the pain, I revisited it, I reanalyzed our entire relationship, I saw everything for what it was different. Now, I don't get stuck on his untimely demise. I am reminded of my favorite memory. And when I hear his name, the image of my daughter dancing with him on a video I still have pops up in my head. And so instead of being drawn down into a flashback, I am drawn up into a lovely memory. Okay? So this is how we control the automatic thought. Because from trigger to action, it's so fast. I don't even think I could scroll that fast. I don't. It's fast. So, 4 weeks, 4 phases of forgiveness, celebrating the culmination of the whole thing from full moon to full moon, or from new moon to new moon, however you want to do it. I hope you guys are having a fabulous day, and thank you so much for watching this entire video. I did not mean for it to be this long. Bye, guys.